Hello, this is Laura Wogzogen, your math instructor for Math 110, and this is a brief video to look at Project 3, which is on Walt Disney World wait times. So Walt Disney World has an average annual attendance of 58 million people. The amount of visitors varies due to the month, the time, and whatever the day is. So complete the project using the dataset on StatDisk. It's dataset 33. This is coming from the textbook 14th edition on Disney World wait times. Again, it's shown at the bottom of this project how to do that, and then I will also show you in this video. So this is an individual project. Each student will submit their own project solutions. Students may work together, however, solutions need to be unique for you. If two projects have the same exact wording for a solution, 0 points will be given for that part. This project needs to be typed. Each part needs to be correctly labeled and completed in order. An explanation and work should be completed using the same methods covered in our chapter notes and the textbook. We also will be using StatDisk again, which is a statistical computer program. So upload our project onto Canvas as a single PDF file, no late projects, and the points for each part are listed, and the total points that you can earn are 45. This time, parts 2, 3, 6, 8, and 9 must have screenshots of the output from StatDisk. They need to be legible and inserted into the correct spots. You also need to clearly state the answers. This time you are rounding 4 decimal places. No points are rewarded for using a graphing calculator for those parts that need the screenshot, which are 2, 3, 6, 8, and 9. Explanations need to be written in complete sentences, and again, we are gaining additional knowledge with working with a statistical computer program. So the first problem that we have on here says what needs to be verified in order to find the confidence interval of the mean wait times for the Tower of Terror at 10 a.m. Clearly state. So it's asking not for you to actually find the interval, but what needs to be verified in order to find the interval. So I'm going to go ahead and open up our Chapter 7 notes. And this is on confidence intervals for Chapter 7. And you'll notice that if you scroll down to 7.1 is an introduction to it. But when we get into 7.2, this one is talking about our confidence intervals. And there are requirements listed here, but the easiest place to find those, if you look on page 3 at the bottom, it says constructing a confidence interval. This one is for population proportion. And so if you look at step 2 says what needs to be verified. And so it's a simple random sample. Binomial distribution is satisfied, and NP and NQ are both greater than or equal to 5. If you were to keep looking at your notes, you'll notice that the next section is going to talk about mean. So 7.1 is on population proportion, 7.2 is on population mean. And so those, what needs to be verified for mean, are also listed in the notes. So for our project, it does use the word mean here. So you do want to be looking in 7.2 for what needs to be verified. Number 2 and number 3 are very similar. They both are asking for you this time you to construct a confidence interval. Number 2 is a 90% one, and 3 is a 95%. And it does ask for the mean wait time for the Tower of Terror at 10 a.m. and to interpret your results. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to StatDisk, since this is one that we do need to use StatDisk for. And the first thing I need to do is input in my data. So it's given on the project, but we're going to be using the 14th edition. And it is dataset 33, so it does require you to kind of scroll a little bit to find it. But you should see Disney World wait times. If you select that, it's going to input in all the data. You'll notice you have Space Mountain times, Small World times, Rock and Roller times, and so forth. So for us, for the first couple problems here that need StatDisk, number 2 and number 3, it does ask for a confidence interval. It is also asking about the mean wait time. So you'll notice that we need to select one of these ones that talks about mean. And so we only have one sample for a problem, not 2, because there's only one time we're asking about, which is at 10 a.m. So selecting that, you can either use your summary statistics, but the easiest way to do this is using data. So go ahead and select that use data. You can change your confidence level here. The column with the values that you want to use are going to be that Tower of Terror at 10 a.m. So make sure you select the correct one. And then it also does say population standard deviation, but if known, and we don't know that, So once you have everything selected and that confidence level changed to whatever it needs to be, you would hit evaluate, and that's going to give you that confidence interval. Again, it does say to round 4 decimal places for this project. So going back to our project here, so that would talk about 2 and 3, don't forget to interpret your results. You need to go back to chapter 7 if you have any issues with remembering how to do that. Number 4 says, what do you notice about the width of the confidence interval from 90 to 95% confidence? So explain what you notice. Number 5 says, what needs to be verified in order to conduct a hypothesis test to determine if the mean wait time at Tower of Terror at 10 a.m. is longer than 35 minutes. So again, this is talking about the mean wait time, and we are still talking about what needs to be verified. We looked at our chapter 7 notes for what needs to be verified for confidence intervals. So this is very similar, but this time for hypothesis testing with just one sample. We're going to be looking in our chapter 8 notes. So make sure you go back to your chapter 8 notes to look at those. Number 6 says use the data, test the claim using the p-value method that the mean wait time Tower of Terror at 10 a.m. is longer than 35 minutes at a 5% significance level. Make sure to include the null and alternative hypotheses, test, and conclusion as done in our class notes. So again, this is another one that does require us to use StatDisk. It is still talking about the mean wait time at 10 a.m. And so I'm going to go ahead and go back to StatDisk. For hypothesis test, if you hit analysis, you'll notice that underneath confidence intervals, it says hypothesis testing. And we are asking again about the mean wait time at 10 a.m. Since it's only one sample, we would select that. Again, I'm going to go ahead and use data. So selecting the use data option up here makes it go a little bit faster. You have to put in your alternative hypothesis. So this is either going to be not equal to, greater than, or less than. So it does depend on what the problem is asking. We do have a spot here to change our significance level. The claimed mean, this is what is listed in H0 and H1. And we have our population standard deviation of known, which we do not. And then again, selecting that Tower of Terror at 10 a.m. and then evaluating it. Again, change these values to make sure they match what you have for the project. So going back to our project here, once you do that and you hit evaluate, you will notice that you are given your p-value there, and then you would have to go through and do the test, which is comparing it to alpha. Again, questions on this, a great place to look would be your chapter 8 notes. Number 7 says what needs to be verified. So here we are, we're doing the verification again, but this time it's for conducting a hypothesis test to find the difference between mean wait times Tower of Terror at 10 a.m. and the mean wait time for the Tower of Terror at 5 p.m. I still notice that we're looking at the means, but this time I notice that we have 2 samples. One's at 10 a.m., one's at 5 p.m. So if you remember, if you go back and if you were to look at your hypothesis testing options on here, there is one that was for 2 means. And now you either have, are they independent or are they dependent? So something that you have to think about. So looking at this, number 7 says what needs to be verified. So we're not actually going through and doing the test, but what we are doing is we need to look at our chapter 9 notes and figure out what we need to verify in order to actually go through with this test. Number 8 and number 9 are going to be the ones that we actually have to use the test. So it says using the data for number 8, test the claim using the p-value method. What the mean wait time for Tower of Terror is different at 10 a.m. than it is at 5 p.m. at the Tower of Terror with a 10% significance. It does say make sure to state your null and alternative hypotheses, test, and conclusion as done in our class notes. So like we just looked at a moment ago, when you go through this and again selecting analysis, hypothesis testing, and again the mean again, but 2 samples, figuring out are they independent? All those people should be independent of one another that are going on that ride. Again, using data, you need to select your alternative hypotheses, so make sure you read through the project carefully. You change your significance level to what it needs to be. And you need to select Tower of Terror at 10 a.m. and the other one is Tower of Terror at 5 p.m. And then you also ask for population standard deviation, which we do not know, so you can just leave those blank. It says unequal variances. This is our no pool, like I stated in our notes. Once you have that, you would evaluate. When you do this again, it's going to give you a p-value, and you would go through just like what we did in our chapter 9 notes. Number 9 is very similar to 8. So 9 says use the data, test the claim using the confidence interval method. So the confidence interval method was introduced in chapter 8, but really explored in chapter 9, in our chapter 9 notes. And this is that the mean wait time for the Tower of Terror is different at 10 a.m. than it is for the Tower of Terror at 5 p.m. at the 10% significance level. So very similar to the last problem that we did. But if you remember that confidence interval method, if you go back and look at your chapter 9 notes, it's determining if 0 is in that confidence interval. If 0 is in the confidence interval or if 0 is not in the confidence interval, it's going to tell us what we would do with our null hypothesis. Is it being rejected or are we not rejecting it? So it says make sure to clearly state what you can conclude from the test and your results as done in the class notes. Again, going back and looking at your chapter 9 notes is a great place to go. So you can get both information either from the hypothesis test or the confidence interval. I'm going to go ahead and look at confidence interval. This time again, it's means. 2 samples, again, one is at 10 a.m., one's at 5 p.m. Selecting that, again, using data makes it a lot easier. Change your confidence level to whatever it needs to be for this problem. And then you would select, again, the Tower of Terror at 10 a.m., Tower of Terror at 5 p.m. We do not know those standard deviations for the population, leaving it as no pool, and then evaluating. When you do that, you're going to get your confidence interval, and that confidence interval, you need to look at if 0 is in the interval or not in the interval. So it does say to make sure to clearly state what you can conclude from the test and your results as done in the class notes. So definitely something to go back and look at your chapter 9 notes if you need some help. And then also right below this is how to actually access that data. I did just show you guys on StatDisk, but just in case you need to look at an actual picture. So again, going to data sets, the 14th edition, and this time again, I couldn't fit it because it's data set 33, so I did put another screenshot in here. But it does say Disney World wait times. I did type it out also for you. If you do have any questions, you can always email me. Another place to get some extra help is going to be at the Marks. They have a computer lab in there, and they are willing to help you guys with any kind of StatDisk questions that you might have or about the material. Best of luck. Again, you guys have about a month to get projects done, but again, procrastinating is probably the worst thing to do. So trying to get this finished early, and then again, asking if you have any questions. Best of luck.